Hi everyone. So this week we only had to watch two movies, Watunna and Frida. So starting off with Watunna, this is actually a short film. It was only about 20 minutes long, and it tells the story of how everything was created. And this is based off of Venezuelan myth. The name of the film, Watuna, it means the memory of our beginning. So that kind of goes with the whole short film of how it's retelling everything, how everything happened. So, as far as myth, this film focuses a lot on cosmology and, of course, how everything was created. You know, the origin of humans and of the night and of darkness. Um, and there's a story of how there are still good people buried in a mountain that are not born yet, and it's kind of like they're gonna be born when Earth is good enough for them to be born. And there's also many stories. One of them discusses the origin of fire, of how these two boys kind of stole fire from their mom and then ended up killing her. There's also another story of it's kind of like a tree of life because from this one tree, um, everybody got food and learned how to plant, and this created rain, and then as a result of that, it created also rivers. So this one tree is like the tree of life because it brought all these things to humans. And then in the movie, the character Wanati is kind of the god of the movie because he's the one who's helping the humans and who created all this to begin with. And we also see the good versus bad between Watani and I forgot what the other character's name was, but there's this character who sort of turns evil and it negatively influences the humans. So we see a lot of elements of that. As far as rituals go, we also see things such as there's a whole story of why placentas must be buried. I mean, must not be buried because that created bad humans. So instead of being buried, placentas must be put in a nest of white ants. Because that's a better way of disposing of it. So that's a kind of ritual. And we also see in the fire story that now, in order to get fire, you must rub these two specific type of plants together, in order to create fire, because that's where they hid the fire in the story. So that's another ritualistic element. As far as cinematography goes, the entire movie is animated, but it's very simple animation, very rustic. And as far as music goes, there's a lot of sort of tribal or instruments that are associated with like tribes, such as like flutes and drums. And it's very, again, simple music. The animation is simple, the music is simple. Everything's pretty simple in this movie. Um, and then in relation to shamans, and for me, I saw that Wanati, which is the god in the movie, he would smoke tobacco in order to sort of think and to dream, and I thought that was similar as to how shamans traditionally must get into an altered state in order to experience their psychological journey, so that they could share it with others. So that's the similarity that I saw between those two. So moving on to Frida, this film tells the story of Frida Kahlo's life. Frida Kahlo was a very famous Mexican artist. So right off the bat, in the beginning of the movie, we see that sort of the main event in her life that kind of changed the trajectory for her, which was she was in an accident when she was younger, and this ended up injuring a lot of things, mainly her pelvis and her back, and this left her with many health problems throughout her life, which we get to see throughout the movie. And this is how she ended up sort of becoming introduced to painting because her father gave her, or he encouraged her to paint during her recovery. And then shortly after this, she started training under another famous painter named Diego Rivera. And these two ended up getting married. However, they had a very unhealthy relationship, and there was a lot of cheating on both their sides. And he even cheated on her with her own sister. And Frida cheated on him with both women and men. And they sometimes even would cheat on each other with the same person. So it wasn't a very good relationship. And then we see towards the end of her life, her health continued to suffer, and she ended up having to get amputations, and this ended up being the cause of her death as well. So as far as myth goes, her paintings are mostly inspired by her own personal stories and her personal pain, but a lot of them also have very mythic and spiritual elements to it. She involves a lot of religion into her paintings and sort of Mexican folktale as well. And then again, she also painted, Mexican themes as well as other themes such as feminism, which she was very well known for. As far as ritual goes, we see her getting married, obviously into a traditional marriage, even though her and her husband were very were not very loyal to each other and they cheated a lot. There was a lot of infidelity from both of them. Another ritual that I noticed was that um, in her life, at least, she would go through this cycle of experiencing a trauma, and then her own way of processing these traumas was sort of to like paint them and to portray them in her art. So I thought that was a kind of ritual. She would go through something difficult, and then she would process it by painting and by expressing herself through her art. As far as cinematography goes, something I thought was cool was that many scenes start off as her paintings, and then the paintings slowly like kind of melt into the scene, like they transform into the scene. So yeah, a lot of the movie incorporates her paintings into it. And I thought that was really cool. Now in relation to shamans, I think Frida can be seen as a type of shaman in this film because she herself experienced psychological trauma again from the accident at the beginning, and I think this really set the course for her life. This along with other like relationship experiences like with her husband, and she uses this psychological stress and the psychological trauma to focus on her paintings and to sort of tell her story through her paintings. So I thought in this way she was kind of like a shaman. Um, and yeah, that's it for me. Thank you guys.